The words slipped out of my mouth before I even realized how sharp they were. Maybe if you were half the man he was, I wouldn't have felt so lonely. For a moment the world went still. Even the sound of the rain outside seemed to pause. Daniel stood across from me in our kitchen, his hand frozen midair, still gripping the mug he'd been holding. His jaw tightened, and I saw the muscle near his temple twitch, a small, almost invisible tremor of pain that would haunt me for months. He didn't speak. He didn't shout. He simply set the mug down carefully, almost too carefully, as if he were afraid that any sudden movement might break the fragile air between us. Then, without a word, he turned and walked away. That was the last time Daniel looked at me with love in his eyes. Before that night we weren't perfect, but we were us. We'd met in college, the quiet art student and the ambitious engineering major who couldn't draw a straight line to save his life. He used to sit next to me in the library, offering coffee in exchange for help with his design sketches. Over the years, that quiet friendship grew into something deeper, comforting, dependable, safe. After 10 years of marriage, though, that safety had begun to feel suffocating. Our lives had turned into schedules. Daniel's work, my deadlines, bills, groceries, laundry. I wanted to feel seen again, admired, not just loved out of habit. That's when Ethan entered the picture. He was a creative director at the firm where I worked, charismatic, clever, and effortlessly confident. He noticed the small things Daniel no longer did. The new haircut, perfume, the way my laugh softened when I was nervous. It started as harmless messages, little jokes shared late at night. "You deserve more appreciation," he'd say. And I let myself believe him. I didn't sleep with Ethan, not physically, but emotionally. I crossed every line that mattered. And the worst part, Daniel knew. He never confronted me directly. At least not at first. He just grew quieter, stayed longer at work, came home smelling faintly of cold night air and distance. I thought he was sulking or maybe losing interest. I didn't realize he'd already seen the messages. It was a Thursday when he found them, my phone buzzing on the counter while I was in the shower. I came out to find him sitting on the edge of the bed, phone in hand, eyes hollow. "Is this why you've been smiling at your screen lately?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper. Froze. There was no shouting, no accusations, just that quiet, unbearable question. "Daniel, it's not what it looks like," I began, the classic line of the guilty. He looked at me for a long time, and something in his gaze, something raw and wordless, made my chest tighten. Then he said softly, "No, Lily. It's exactly what it looks like." He didn't storm out. He didn't pack his bags. He just withdrew. Day by day, piece by piece, as if dismantling every memory we'd built together. For weeks I tried to fix things. I apologized, I deleted Ethan's number. I cooked Daniel's favorite meals. But his eyes, those eyes that once held warmth and laughter, now looked through me like I was a stranger. Until that night in the kitchen. We'd been arguing again, this time about something trivial, whether he'd forgotten our anniversary or I'd just stopped caring enough to remind him. The air was thick with resentment. And when I felt cornered, instead of being humble, I lashed out. I said the one thing I knew would hurt him most. "Maybe if you were half the man he was." Even as the words left my mouth, I wanted to grab them back. But it was too late. Daniel didn't yell. He didn't cry. He just shut down. Completely. That was the moment I lost him. Not to another woman, not to time or distance, but to the realization that he could never unhear what I'd said. The days that followed were unbearable. He moved through the house like a ghost, polite, distant, untouchable. He'd still pour me coffee in the mornings but never meet my eyes. Still ask if I needed anything from the store, but in a voice stripped of warmth. One evening, I found him sitting on the porch, staring out into the rain. I sat beside him, desperate to bridge the silence. "Daniel," I whispered. "I didn't mean it. I was angry." He nodded, still staring ahead. "I know. Then why can't you look at me the same way anymore?" He exhaled slowly. Because I believed you the first time. The truth of that sentence shattered me. I started therapy, hoping it might help me understand why I'd done what I did. My therapist told me that sometimes people hurt the ones they love most because they crave validation, attention, something to fill the void inside them. But how do you explain to someone that you destroyed the one person who never gave up on you, just to feel wanted for a fleeting moment? Daniel didn't leave, but he wasn't really there either. We shared a house but not a life. He began sleeping in the guest room, saying he worked better alone. And every morning when he passed me in the hallway, I saw it, the distance in his eyes. That quiet, endless distance. One night, after months of silence, he finally spoke. "I'm taking the job in Seattle," he said, standing by the doorway with his suitcase. Froze. Seattle? For how long? He looked at me, expression unreadable. "Indefinitely." "Daniel, please. Don't do this. We can still fix us." He shook his head gently. "You broke something that doesn't fix, Lily. Trust doesn't grow back. Not after what you said." I stepped forward, tears blurring my vision. "Then why are you still wearing your ring?" He looked down at it, twisting it once between his fingers. "Habit, I guess." And with that, he slid it off and placed it on the table. Months have passed since he left. The house feels emptier than ever. The echo of footsteps, the faint smell of his cologne still trapped in the closet. I see his name sometimes on company announcements. Hear mutual friends mention how well he's doing in Seattle. They say he smiles again. I hope it's true. As for me, I've learned that apologies don't undo pain. That sometimes the worst betrayal isn't cheating. It's using love as a weapon in a moment of anger. Because I didn't just mock my husband. I mocked the man who had once loved me more than he loved himself. And now, every time I look in the mirror, I see that same distance he once carried in his eyes. Only this time it's staring back at me. Ending line. Some wounds don't bleed, they echo. And in the quiet of our empty home, I still hear his silence louder than any goodbye.